My son, Lauren, had his appendix removed this morning. He had a basic understanding of the surgery, but the only hang-up he had was having to wear nothing but a hospital gown. No socks or underwear. When we got to the hospital room to get him prepared, he told his mom / my ex and her sister / his aunt to turn or to leave when he had to undress. Obviously, he was fine with me being there and needed help. After the surgery, me, my ex, her sister, her 13-year-old niece, and my 18-year-old son were in the recovery room. We were waiting for Lauren to sober up and get discharged. He started to come to and whispered to me that he wanted to put on clothes because he wasn't comfortable wearing nothing but a gown in front of 3 girls. At the same time, a female nurse came in to get his vitals and was talking to my ex. I asked if they could all step outside so I could help Lauren get dressed. They looked bewildered at my request. The nurse then said she'd help me dress him because my son was still a bit weak. I said, no thanks, my teen son will help out. She asked if I was serious by asking her to leave over this, and I said yes. My son doesn't feel comfortable getting dressed in front of 4 females. The nurse said she's been a nurse for years and has heard of anything crass. I said, you're comfortable, my son isn't, and you're being insensitive is what's crass and clueless. I said I was being dramatic. My ex said, probably. They left and me and my other son got him dressed. My ex called me and said I owe her and everyone else an apology. I refused. I said if the roles were reversed, then you'd have a very different opinion. Also, Lauren has to take a bath for the next few days, and she was crazy if she was expecting Lauren to let her wash him or even be in the bathroom with him. It's different with me or his brother or friends, and I don't have to convince her for me to be right. Edit. For the record, the gown he was wearing was made out of paper. It wasn't even cloth. My son was dying to get out of it. He was basically naked. I didn't think my son would have minded a male nurse at all, but since me and my older son were there, the thought of requesting a male nurse didn't cross my mind. I don't know if they had a male nurse available at that moment, because the nurse made a comment that they were short-staffed but all qualified. I wasn't going to argue with her over who got to put on my son's Minecraft underwear or zipped his hoodie. It's a waste of my time. She did mention how she didn't want him to get hurt with my dressing him, and I said, then you best let me handle it because he will fight you. Update, I did have to take him back to the hospital this morning because he couldn't pee but had to. He was in a lot of pain. At the hospital, I asked if a nurse was going to see my son before or after his male doctor, and they said yes. I asked for male, and they said that ask the head nurse. She asked why it was important to have a male nurse. I told her we can schedule an appointment to fight over it after my son sees a doctor. They did find a male nurse, and my son was totally relaxed around him. The male nurse said a lot of female nurses take it personally when a patient asks for a male nurse, and it's always been that way. Fortunately, my son didn't need a catheter and is fine. Am I the asshole? Right, listen, I'm a little torn on this one because I think there's like something weird, not like. Anyway, I'll take it up front. The overall vote on this story was not the asshole. And listen, I don't think he's the asshole. Like, I don't don't think he's the asshole, because he was just fulfilling his son's requests, you know, and trying to make him comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. But I'm like not sure if it's normal that a 9-year-old, was he 9? Yeah, I think so, is so uncomfortable with getting dressed in front of women. I like, you know, I'm like thinking if there was a weird thing where that happened. I mean, listen, you know, 9-year-olds, there hasn't been much outside influence and stuff. It's not like they're grown teens that more so think for themselves. When you're 9, you're kind of more still blab what your like influential people in your life are telling you. And I'm just like a little, you know, like, I mean, with the whole like in front of a nurse thing, like they are medical professionals, you know, and I know like as a girl, okay, I am always slightly uncomfortable when I have to go to male doctors. I prefer to go to female doctors, so it's nothing that I can't relate to. But, you know, I don't like to go through to male doctors because I had very, like, traumatizing experiences with men in my life that were, like, doing things I didn't consent to me, and am therefore uncomfortable. So I'm like wondering, you know, where that comes from, especially if he doesn't want to get undressed in front of his own mom. Like, I'm not saying like really you do not have need a full people audience to get undressed, you know, that's insane. I would also ask for some privacy, but I get the frustration from the mom. It is a little weird. Like, it is a little sus. Like, he's definitely not the asshole for it, but I'm like something here sounds a little wrong. Maybe that's just me. I'm interested to hear your opinions. If you think that it's weird that a 9-year-old is very insistent on not undressing in front of females and in front of his own mom, but is like perfectly fine, you know, in front of his dad and his brother. Because I kind of feel like, you know, because I'm slightly seeing the Reddit comments and a lot of them are talking about modesty, but I grew up in like a very open household, so I'm not very what's the word? I'm not very like knowledged in like modesty per se, especially not when it's like in a religious context, which I've like no idea. I'm just you know, thinking of reasons. So like I don't fully like get it, especially in front of your mum who birthed you. Like, as a 9-year-old, you shouldn't like think about modesty yet. You shouldn't even know what that is, you know. At 9, I feel like at 9 it's a weird thing to me to be talking about modesty here, because in my opinion, okay, in my personal opinion, that's a very like sexualizing thing, and like I really like sexualizing 9-year-olds. And then like, why is a 9-year-old so aware of his sexuality that he does not want to undress in front of his mom? But you know, maybe that's totally normal. I'm obviously not a mom. You know, maybe mature children definitely don't feel like changing in front of a bunch of spectators. The nurse was very unprofessional. As a healthcare professional, she had to be made aware of the need to respect a patient's modesty. This child was not alone, you were there to help him, so her presence was not necessary. Thank goodness you were there to be your son's voice. I don't really understand the reactions of those in the room. If I had been there, I'd been uncomfortable violating the privacy of a 9-year-old child, and I'd have immediately left. Your request was perfectly reasonable, and your son's privacy is very important. Continue to protect him. You know, like, I'm not like 100%. Like, if I was the nurse, okay, I would have also, you know, questioned it a little bit, because, like, that is their job. And I don't think the nurse was being unprofessional here. She was, like, asking if they're sure if they can, you know, handle it together. Because, like, the other kid, the older brother, he could have been 12, you know, and this kid just got their appendix removed. You know, there's a scar, there's a hurt, and you cannot rough dog this 9-year-old to shove him into his clothes, okay? I feel like the nurse was being very reasonable to ask if they're sure they don't need help, because, listen, especially if this is in America, and I'm like, you know, I always think everything is in America. If anything goes wrong when you're changing this child, and you know the stitching rips and he starts to bleed or whatever, the nurse and the hospital is going to be the one liable for this, and not the parents. You know, if anything happens, the nurse is going to be like asked why she didn't help them, and so I feel like the nurse wasn't being unprofessional. I will say that. I think the dad could have been more forthcoming and, you know, asked for male nurse if this was such a big problem. I just feel like it's a little weird that this 9-year-old is so, like, against changing in front of women. It's, like, perfectly fine, okay, don't get me wrong. I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask everyone to step out, but I do think the nurse was being unprofessional, and I think it's a little odd that this child is so aware of his modesty. Seems a little bit weird to me personally. The next comment is also that nurse was 100% out of line, and I personally say something to the facility about her unprofessional attitude. She needs to learn some empathy for her patients, regardless of their age. Your son was very clear in what made him comfortable, and there was no reason for her to question you as his parent and made that snotty comment. Listen, like, I think the dad voiced his concerns for the son, and I think in any case, nurses, you know, have to be vigilant and, you know, make sure this is actually what the person wants, and I feel like this is like, yeah, I went back to reread what they, like, said. The nurse said she'd help him dress him because his son was still weak. Like, listen, I think that is what a nurse should say in any case. Even when someone asks them to step out, like, you don't know, like, you can't, like, read their minds, you know. And then they said, the father said, no thanks, my teen son will help out. And then apparently the nurse said if they were serious about asking her to leave, and then the dad said yes. So I think that was just, like, you know, again, confirmation. I'm sure, like, I don't want to predict too much because maybe the situation was entirely different to what I'm, like, going on about, but I feel like that's still a reasonable response. Just asking, like, are you serious? Like, do you seriously want me to leave? Like, you know, in a, like, nicer way. And then he said, my son doesn't feel comfortable getting dressed in front of 4 females, and the nurse said she's been a nurse for years and has heard of anything crass. that's just your standard reply to make a patient feel better. I think, like, to hear, like, nothing out of the ordinary, I feel like that's what you need to say, and what you need to be more insistent about actually helping. Because, listen, I don't think after surgery you should change your kid yourself when you have no medical background, especially with the help of your teen son. You know, it's just kind of like that, I will say, is not very responsible, because, you know, an operation for an appendix is can be very invasive, you know, so you can do more harm than good by not accepting professional help to help him change. So, like, are you also gonna request a male doctor and everything? Because they did, you know, on the bottom, and it like enters like, it just sounds a lot off to me, you know. I'm not trying to insinuate anything, you know, but like, just in my head, there's like alarm bells. What it's that nothing, like, that something's weird with the 9-year-old, or he's brought up in a very, like, I don't want to make assumptions. Anyway, we'll move on. Anyway, she then said to her, "You're comfortable, my son isn't, and you're being insensitive. It's what's crass and clueless. Sir, you'd have to leave the hospital." I don't think she's been unreasonable till then. She then said, "He's being dramatic." And listen, he is. I'm sorry, I think this is a little sus, and modesty in all, it's right, you know, it's fine. It's also fine to ask everyone to step out, but like, medical professional, she's a medical professional, and in like all rights, at some point, you know, you're gonna have to teach your 9-year-old son that is, you know, something he's gonna have to get used to. Because listen, yes, you can request a male nurse, you can go to a male doctor all your life, but are you really, like, for like an operation in the hospital or something, I don't think you can request who your doctor's gonna be. And I think it is also good parenting to make your kids aware of that. This is a medical professional. You don't have to be ashamed of, you know, that. And I don't know, okay, in my opinion, like, really deep down in me, I think the dad is taking it a little too far. And again, I will say, it's fine that he asked everyone to step out, like, that's fine, but I think there's something weird about the request from the kid. And I will say, I think the dad was being mean to the medical professional, to the nurse, because he wasn't explaining properly why he wanted to address his son after medical surgery. Okay, like, literally, you get sued into the grounds for that, for leaving that dad to address his kid. So, like, I don't fully understand where everyone on Reddit is coming from with modesty and stuff. And like, really, really deep down, okay, I think this is unfortunately something you kind of have to get over a little bit. I sometimes have to go to male doctors, you know, if I'm in the hospital, and that's what I get, you know. And yeah, you don't have to, like, feel uncomfortable. It's not, like, no, you don't have to, but it's weird. It's just a little weird. I can't explain why I think this is a little weird, but I think it is a little weird, and I think that father's overacting a little bit. I also think, you know, everyone else is overreacting a little bit, but I don't know. Hey, listen, I found one everyone sucks here comment, and kind of this is like, I don't think he's the asshole, but it's like weird, you know. I find this story weird. And they said the fact that the nurse pushed back when your son asked for privacy privacy is unacceptable, but she didn't. She only did when the dad asked for privacy. You know, she did. I don't think she heard the conversation between the son and the father. So I think it's perfectly respectable that she asked, because it is, you know, it's a bit odd. My alarm bells will go off, you know, and that your behaviour and advocating for him is fine, but I never get to talk about that. But they quoted something he said about the ex, and she was crazy if she was expecting Lauren to let her wash him or even be in the bathroom with him. And you understand, are you suggesting your ex, presumably his mother, would be crazy to think it is okay to help bathe your son because she's female, while it's okay for your friends to do so because they're male? I disagree with that conclusion, and you should too. There's nothing objectively right about saying grown men should be around bathing 9-year-olds, but his mother never can be here. If the reason is your son is ashamed, it's because you've been teaching him that you screwed up. It should be okay for him to accept help when vulnerable from women, not just men. It's a bit more crass than what I was trying to bring across, but I definitely think that is a little weird, especially like also the comment to the mom. I should like, what do you mean she cannot bathe a 9-year-old? Do you know how tiny a 9-year-old is? I babysitted for a 12-year-old and she could barely count to 20, okay? Like, do you know how young 9 is? That's insane. And like, listen, people are going on, that's the child request, but yeah, like, child autonomy in all, like, I'm all for that, and like, you know, but it does sound like it does sound a little, the dad is a little bit weird, maybe, and I think Reddit's loving it, because Reddit's also a little weird, so I'm intrigued, because I know most of your girls. I'm intrigued to hear what you think about this topic, because I think this can be like taken so weird. I found a comment, oh my god, okay, it says, this is very odd. Is your son's relationship with his mother okay? You don't refer to her as his mom, just as the ex. He's also 9 and doesn't want his mother's help when he's hurting and embarrassed. Boys will go into a phase of wanting gender privacy, usually tweens or early teens, but it's odd to have it happen so early. Also, you said he's more comfortable being naked in front of his friends than his mom, so any male is okay and no females of any kind. You also act like this is normal, but it's pretty unusual for a 9-year-old child with a closer relationship to their parents to be more comfortable being bathed by their friends rather than their parents. Yeah, listen, like, that's what I'm saying. It's just sus. The whole story is sus. It's just weird. Also, like, I'm sorry that we're going on about this story for so long, but a few of the other ones are a little shorter. I'm just stuck on it. Okay, someone said, and this is actually a good point, I haven't been thinking about it yet. Someone said, yeah, no, this is totally fake. That is not how surgery recovery works. Even in a laparoscopic appendectomy is going to have him in the hospital overnight. He ain't leaving until they are sure he's eating, drinking, and able to toilet reliably. No one but medical staff is allowed in the recovery room. Family can visit after the patient is transferred back to a regular room. A nurse wouldn't be doing vitals and helping a patient dress. That's what CNAs are for. And the cherry on top is that after the surgery, you're absolutely not supposed to take baths because soaking the incisions or getting soap on them is a really bad idea. Source, I had my appendix out last month, and I also worked in healthcare for many years. Yeah, a lot of people in the comments are agreeing with that. Some like aren't. I don't know. I will say, I think as well that a good nurse would have kind of been on her toes a little, like she was, because it is just it's just a little sus, okay? And like, you know, after surgery, if something goes wrong, they're reliable, so I feel like it's not that weird that she was like questioning you. And I feel like the dad is a little out of line, because he's not like reflecting at all. Well, this is weird. I don't know, maybe this is just a troll post. It's so to me that it's just like such an afterthought. He was about to be released and wanted to change into normal clothes, you know. I don't know, like the nurse would have at least like had to look at his wound to tell you if he was being like allowed back into jeans, you know. I don't know, it's weird, but anyway, we'll continue. I think I just have to, you know, be okay with this being weird, and we have to continue. Alrighty, yeah, the next story is called Am I the Asshole for Taking All of the Clothes in My Size off the Rack so resellers couldn't grab everything before I looked? Last week I had time and stopped into a thrift. They were just putting up stuff from their truck. I'm never so lucky to be there when that happens. The shops are always very picked over with just Old Navy or Target clothes whenever I can go. So I was happy I might find something. I started browsing normally and was finding some good stuff for once when I saw a group of 3 women come in. One had a little computer for scanning books, the other two had iPads or something. I assumed to check resale prices. Either way, they were clearly resellers and started grabbing stuff after checking labels. I felt a sense of dread because I wouldn't be fast enough to check, so I just swooped everything off the rack and into my cart in my size. When the two got to me, they started staring. I said, "What?" And one was like, "We'd like to be able to see what's on the rack too." I said that they could as soon as I was done. She scoffed at me and said, "That's rude, we'd like a chance to shop these clothes too." I just ignored her and started looking at things one by one, taking my time, then putting them right back on the rack. The women were getting mad and snatching things basically out of my hand. I held up a nice top and one of them tried to grab it out of my hand and I said, "Excuse you," and turned my back to her. They got all pissy and one stomped away to get a worker. The worker came over and asked what was going on. I said I was looking up items from the rack, same as anyone else. They said I was hoarding everything so they couldn't get a chance to look. The worker said I wasn't done. I wasn't doing anything wrong and then said to me, "Thank you for putting everything back when you're done." I finished what I was doing with the women, breathing down my neck, and took my clothes to go try on. One of them kept following me and asked me what the fuck my problem was, why I was being such a bitch, etc. I said, "Sorry you're having a bad day, but it's really not my problem. Am I the asshole? I just wanted a chance to be able to find nice clothes for once." From my POV, I didn't do anything different than people who fill up their carts and go try on everything. Plus, I didn't even take all of the good clothes to begin with. Alright, again, I'll take it up front and say the voting was not the asshole. And I think I agree, but like not to play devil's advocate because I kind of feel like I did that in the last story. But it's a bit icky, you know. It's definitely probably not something I would do. Listen, I think the initial thing of doing that isn't, you know, it's a very spur-in-the-moment decision, but she judged like on the spot. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but still, it might not. They might like look for like things to, I don't know, get for charity. Maybe they have a wish list or something. You don't know, you know. I feel like, you know, she right off the bat was really defensive, and you know, she could have just explained, "Hey, sorry, like I think you're resellers. I would just love to shop on my own, and when I'm done, you can have a look. But I would just love if you give me the opportunity to look through these she has all this stuff in her cart, then I just think she could have been just a tad friendlier because she didn't know the exact circumstances. However, I will say that the other ones were being a little weird as well, just like aggressively coming at her afterwards. I don't know, then I think, and not the outside vote, it's just purely of the fact that if you know, or if you're like 100% sure that these people are resellers, I kind of think the worker might have given it away, that, you know, she might have known these people, because there might be like regulars there. But listen, okay, if I'm just like walking in with my phone and I'm checking like, you know, resale prices, because I sometimes do that, because some thrift shops be seriously overcharging stuff. I literally saw an H&M shirt for €8. That would have cost like €9 max when you would have bought it brand new. So like, you know, I would also do that. And if I was just also trying to regularly shop and then someone bought that, I would also be like, listen lady, this is all yours, like, come on. But I truthfully feel like this story could have been a bit more friendly with a bit more healthy communication. But you know, it is what it is. I think, you know, ultimately not the answer, because reselling clothes is it's a little shitty, not gonna lie. So top comment is, not the asshole, I donate a lot of nice clothing. WHBM BCBG, no idea, etc., because I would like others who can't easily afford them to get them, not so someone else can swoop in and sell my clothes if they profit. Sure, they're allowed to, but I'm okay with you grabbing stuff in your size first over resellers. Plus, then every other size to choose from. That's true, actually. Now, if these were other women trying to shop for themselves, that'd be a little unhanded. Yeah. Yeah. Someone said, not the asshole. I'm pretty judgy about thrifts resellers in general, but they would have done exactly the same thing you did if they had been there before you. The only difference is they would have been slightly more selective based on their research. So, you're not the asshole. Kudos to the store employee for having your back. I hope you got some good finds. Not the asshole. Resellers have ruined thrifting. I've been thrifting for 15 years and I used to find great stuff in my size all the time. Now it's just leftover Shein junk. They're the same as landlords in my opinion, and they're way more ethical professions. Guys, I don't know. I've talked about this before, but Vinted is like the German / European reselling clothes thrift store app. Like Depop, I think. And I got lately, I've been seeing so much Shein stuff on my Vinted, but these people aren't selling it as like Shein stuff, but they're always saying it's like a vintage boutique clothes that are like no name, no brand. You know, those like little small shops that have like random clothing from like different brands. That's what they're like saying it's from. And then I've seen this like thread site where they're literally just like finding the Shein article and then they're actually messaging the people. And they're all like, Shein steals from everyone. This is just the original design. It's nicer quality. And it's just kind of like, alright, because Shein would know about this random item in a boutique store that doesn't even have a brand. And would copy it one to one. And then usually they also have the same, like they just have the Shein photo on it. It's just delusional. So like, be on your guard. But yeah, I definitely agree that resellers, I don't know, I mean, there's cute ones, there's like ethical ones. I've seen some where they make like outfit boards and shop like whole outfits for you, but know their circumstances. I mean, maybe they're trying to be sustainable. Maybe they just can't or don't want to spend that much money on really expensive clothes. And then, like, you're taking that away. You're, like, paying this much and then selling it for a profit margin. I mean, like, that's life. But it's just odd. I don't know. But let's continue, because I think not the asshole. Right, the next story is called "Am I the asshole for giving my daughters things back that were taken away as a punishment?" I'm 31 and my husband is 30. Our daughter is 7 and she found a puppy in the front yard and played with it. Turns out it belonged to our neighbors who were looking for it. They accused her of stealing it and my husband gave her extra chores. She refused to do them, saying she didn't steal the puppy. The neighbors came to apologize a bit later as their son confessed to losing the puppy on a walk when he took its leash off. That's how it ended up on our yard. I came home that evening and my husband explained this. He said she should be disciplined for not doing the chores. I said she was right not to accept unearned punishment. He said it's the principle and she should listen to her father. I said I would rather die than teach her that she should lay down and accept mistreatment. We argued and he called me unreasonable. Am I the asshole? Listen, I think this is one of the cases. It's kind of weird because it's like, you know, like the other story a little bit, but I feel like, you know, you definitely should stand up for your child and teach them young to stand up for mistreatment, because this actually, you know, she didn't do anything wrong and she's trying to communicate that, and I think that's like all there is to say. You know, I get where he's coming from, that he doesn't want to take it back to not lose authority, so to say, but I think it also, you know, makes a man to be aware of your mistakes, to acknowledge them, and, you know, he can just go, or he should just go to his daughter and apologize, and then I think all be well. But, like, let's read some comments. Not the asshole. My bigger red flag here is your husband's action through all of this. He took the word of a stranger over his own child, assigned a punishment based on a misunderstanding that was later cleared up, but he refused to lift the punishment and apologize for his actions towards his daughter. It's arbitrary. She should listen to her father. Is the biggest red flag for me. He refuses to back down and admit when he's wrong and is keeping up with an unearned punishment he wants to double down on because she fought against it in the first place when it was wrongly assigned. OP, please keep an eye on this. I'm not saying it's currently abusive behavior, but it's got the little leanings of possibly future abusive behavior. Listen. It's just probably like he just doesn't want to admit he's wrong, which can be shitty, but you know, chill. Another comment says, I got into it with my husband 1 year ago. My oldest son from my first marriage was maybe 12 at the time, making a box of mac and cheese for lunch for himself and his little brother. When it came time to put in the butter, he did exactly what he's seen me do dozens of times. Slice it up so it melts faster before pouring in cold milk. For some reason, husband took issues with him cutting up his little quarter stick of butter, told him to just drop it and stir it up and it will melt just fine. My son finished slicing it up while hubby got more irritated. I stepped in trying to explain he's just doing it how he's seen me do it and trying to figure out why the hell was such a big deal. Like, am I missing something that's wrong about slicing butter? Turned out that husband got mad because my son didn't immediately do what he said. We had a really long discussion about that kind of attitude. Fortunately, and learned his lesson on what it's important to make an issue out of and what isn't, and slicing butter is not a major issue. would your husband believe your child was capable of stealing someone's pet? That's pretty clear. I know my kid didn't do this type of thing. And usually rephrasing a question or explaining things gets a kid that young to admit what they did, even if inadvertently. The biggest takeaway here is that the strangers came back to apologize for their accusation, but Dad can't manage to apologize to his own child, not only for not believing her, but levying a punishment with zero facts. No one should blindly listen to an adult when the adult is wrong. That sets a terrible precedence of a child not knowing when it's safe to refuse anything from unwanted contact from a family member or being forced to do something they know is wrong. Yeah. Alright, let's move on. I think all's been said. The story is called Am I the Asshole for Not Ordering Any Food So I Wouldn't Have to Split the Bill? I, 27 male, have been a part of a small friend group, around 8 people total, basically since college. For some background, 2 people from the group, Susan and Greg, are absolute leeches. Going out for lunch, expect them to order the most expensive thing on the menu, then feed you some sub-story about their finances, and then dump half the bill on you. Last weekend, Dan, one of the people from the group, told me about a casual dinner. I told him if Susan or Greg were there, I wouldn't be able to come. He tells me that they would be there, but I should just put my opinions aside and just come once. This is kind of where I might be the asshole. I agreed with him and told him I would be there. I show up and we all get to talking. Everyone began putting in their orders and most of them spent around $40. There were only about 6 people there. When it gets to Susan and Greg, they both order expensive dishes, around $200. When it was my turn to order, everyone looked at me, but I picked up the menu and pointed to the $4 Miller Lite. Is that a beer? I don't know. And sent the waiter away. Dan asked why I hadn't ordered anything else, and I said that I lost my appetite. The other 2 friends got up as well to cancel their orders and just have drinks. After the main course came out, I saw Susan and Greg picking at their food. The waiter then brings over the check. Greg then asks the waiter and asks him to split the check 6 ways. I stand up and correct him, saying the check was to be split 3 ways. Greg looks at me confused and asked why, since we always split the bill. I reminded him that 3 of us had not eaten any food, so we would just be paying for our drinks. So basically, at the end of the night, Dan, who probably only ate around $50 worth of food, was stuck with $146 check at the end. Yes, I remember the exact number. I swear I saw his jaw drop when he picked the receipt up. It's one of those words that confuses the old German me. Receipt and recipe. I cannot. Anyway, I slid a $10 note towards the check, said goodbye everyone, and walked out. The next morning, I found my phone full of texts from Greg and Susan, telling me I was an asshole for not ordering any food and forcing them to pay more than they had accounted for. I honestly laughed because the stakes alone were more than what they paid, but to each their own right. I also got a lot of messages from Dan saying that I could have just not come instead of pulling that stunt and getting him stuck with an outrageous bill. Edit: at this restaurant, the bar is separate, so drinks aren't a separate bill, if that makes sense. And if anyone is concerned about leaving a tip, I live in Australia. Edit: I just wanted to clarify a few things. 1, 90% of the restaurant where I live, they don't do separate checks and might separate bill for you if you're lucky. This post was just trying to get him to see what kind of people he was helping. I will admit, I was a tad bit petty. Listen, I don't think he's the asshole. I mean, I feel like Dan and Susan, was it? Like, no, Susan Greg. Like, they need to learn their ways, and they need it. Like, listen, I know in Australia it's not very common to get separate checks. In Germany, everyone gets their own check. Like, literally, you do not, like, split evenly. That's not a thing. And, like, I would just not stand for this shit. Like, if I go out to eat, you know, that's also me doing something nice for me, and I will not pay for anyone else, you know, like maybe for my best friends, but also not all the time, and not when if they don't have money, you know, get the fucking Caesar salad, you know, get some bread rolls, eat beforehand, you know. If you're too broke to go out, you can still go out, just like get a drink, get some breadsticks, you know, you don't have to eat a meal, eat at home, and then go out with your friends. Or, you know, just order maybe not the most expensive item on the menu. It would be really helpful to your financial situation. I will promise you that. So I think not the asshole was also the overall vote of this story. But listen, I think we could have like had a conversation with Susan Greg previously to this. I think you can tell I'm maybe not the most petty person, and this is very much petty. And I think, you know, you could have just been a bit more open and discussed this with them up front. You know, been like, nah, no, I'm not ordering. Like, if you order this much, I'm not paying for half of it. So, yeah, you get what I mean, right? And top comment, even if you're actually not hungry, I would still say not the asshole. They clearly premeditated this whole event and expect others to take financial fall for their lifestyle. I hope Dan opens his eyes, but right now they seem super glued shut. Good for you though. Not the asshole. I thought what you did was brilliant. You started by saying you would not attend if the leeches were there. Your friend Dan wanted you to come anyway, so you did, but on your own terms. The moment you ordered only a beer, that was a signal that every adult at the restaurant should have recognized, especially because the bill is separate from the food that you are not eating. Two others were not eating, thus obviously not splitting a bill for dinner. I bet Dan will not be so quick to include Susan and Greg again. Yeah, listen, the longer I think about it, the less I like Susan and Greg. It's like, please don't be freeloading of your friends. Especially, like, not to this extent, you know. Like, that's crazy. Ordering, like, $200 worth of food, even if it's 80. I think $1 Australian equates to 0.6 euros. And I think, like, dollars is, like, a little less than euros. So, like, you know, you do that in your head, but it still means 120 euros. 120 euros per steak, which is insane. It's insane. Alright, but let's continue on because we're running out of time. Because I blabbled and yapped the way too long in the beginning there. And I still have 2 stories I want to get through. So, the next story is, am I the asshole for eating at the children I babysit for's house? What? Is my brain not braining, or yours as well? Am I the asshole for eating at the children I babysat for's house? Listen, ma'am, I think you mean, am I the asshole for eating at the children's house that I babysat for? My brain's not braining. Okay, anyway. I had a 20 female babysit for some extra cash on the side. This just happened and it's eating me up, so here we go. So, the family ordered pizza for dinner. Mom left cash on the table for me to pay. It was me, the 2 boys, 7 and 10. Large cheese pizza and breadstick. always been under the impression that the babysitter is allowed to have a reasonable amount of dinner if they are expected to serve dinner. I've babysat a few times in the past and have never encountered this. When the parents came home to relieve me, they asked how today went. I said fine and said that the pizza place was really good as I had never ordered from there before. Mum looked at me puzzled and asked why I ate the kids' dinner. I said I just had 2 slices of pizza and a breadstick. I feel as if this was not an appropriate amount to eat. An inappropriate amount to eat. However, the parents disagreed. Dad said they didn't expect to have to feed me dinner as well and told me not to eat their family's food. Overall, I'm very uncomfortable and confused by this experience. Both boys were fed and did not complain about being hungry for the rest of the night. I personally have always assumed, perhaps wrongly, that if I am expected to serve dinner as a sitter, then I am welcome to have a serving. Is this something anyone else has experienced? Am I the asshole? Okay, so the overall vote was not the asshole. I will say, again, devil's advocate, I think, as a parent, you could be caught in surprise there if your babysitter was like actually eating the food you thought was for your children if you're like in a financial bad place. But I'm kind of thinking in this case where you have a babysitter and you have enough money to pay the babysitter and pay for a pizza dinner for the boys, then you're not like that financially hard off. I don't know. And I don't know, it's a bit weird. I have babysat enough in my, a fair share in my life, and I was on a pair, but listen, when you're on a pair, you're one of the things about being a pair is that you're provided, a place to sleep and you're provided with food. So that was never a problem, but I've also babysat and I've been invited to dinner multiple times. I've also ordered pizza with the kids and, they ordered me my own pizza and everything. It was all good. I feel like if this is really a dead kill for the parents, they should have communicated that, before and not after. It's just I think it's a miscommunication, and I think the parents aren't reasonable, and I would have also eaten that pizza. The top comment is, not the asshole, I'm sure they had enough to eat. Were they expecting leftovers? And her PHI replied, there were leftovers. an au pair in Australia, by the way, for everyone who I get this question so often. It's like the most asked question that I get. Why I have an Australian accent if I am German? It's because I was an au pair in Australia for 2 years, and I was babysitting for a lovely, lovely little girl. And I met my boyfriend in Australia, who I've now been with for almost 6 years, and he is obviously Australian. And while he is learning German, we're mostly talking English to each other, which is where this girl's accent's from. But let me tell you, I was like looking for multiple countries when I was first looking, to find a host family. And if you're not familiar with au pairs, it's just usually a nanny for your child, just that they live with you, which is why usually pay them less than what a normal hourly rate would be. You would usually pay them for a week of work, and they live with you, and you provide them with food and everything. And I've had a great experience being an au pair, and a lot of my friends did as well. But I think one of the biggest things you kind of have to have is a good relationship and like trust and like boundaries as well. But also understanding that the other one is still their own person, and I think that worked really well for me personally. But I've heard different things, and one of the things I was going to get at before I found my host family in Australia, I had an interview with a mom from England, and we had a good call, but in the call already I could tell this is not going to be the family for me. And she then sent me an email after the talk and sent me the rule list she was talking about, and it was just insane. It was so unreasonable. It was like, I can't remember, no clothes with rips or anything, long sleeves all the time, and it was like summer. One of the rules was that I was not allowed to open the door to anyone. I was not allowed to bring anyone over. You had to be at home before 11. Ma'am, I'm an adult. I ain't coming back before 11. Let me tell you that. And it was just so much other stuff for people were just crazy. And then usually au pairs just nanny work, but some can ask for a little bit of cleaning as well. And she was full on you get a time schedule, 2 hours a day, you'll clean and do the laundry and vacuum and everything. And I was like, lady, no. I'm not you're not no. For nothing. I think I would have gotten £150 a week. I think that was what she was gonna pay me. £150 a week. For a full-time babysitter job and cleaning. And at the end of the day, I wasn't even allowed, after my long work day, I wasn't even allowed to be out longer than 11. Not even on days off. Are you joking? It's okay to have these boundaries in your life, and not want to be woken up by someone coming home after 11 or whatever the reasoning was that she had, but please, don't do this to a young adult. You're literally using and abusing them. That's not okay. For anyone who was wondering, I was paid 450 Australian dollars per week when I was in Australia, and I was only working 3 days a week, and I was working way less than my friends. So listen, you gotta be careful out there, okay? Alright, but let's get to our last story for today, which I'm gonna lean up also has something to do with Australia. But I'll get to that. So, it does have I the asshole of offering to sell my seat to honeymooners? I was flying from Melbourne to Dubai. I paid for a premium economy seat because it's a 14-hour flight and I wanted to be comfortable. The person in the next seat had been upgraded and they asked if I could switch the seat with their wife as they had just got married and were on their honeymoon. I congratulated him on his nuptials and asked where his wife was sitting. He pointed towards the back of the plane in economy. I declined to switch seats. He asked if there was any way to convince me. I offered to switch if he paid the difference between the seats. It's a goodly amount. I had been lucky to get mine at a decent price. It would have only cost him 1,000 AUD. He said that they were on a budget for their honeymoon. I congratulated once again and put in my earbuds. He mothered that I was an asshole. I said he was a prick for taking the upgrade instead of either sitting with his wife or giving it to her. I told my wife about the incident and she thinks I should have done the nice thing. For the record, she hates flying in economy, so I know she would have not switched. Like, listen, no, you don't have to do the right thing. Like, you paid your good hard-earned cash for the seat. Who's even to say these people actually got married and didn't just want to scam a free upgrade out of you? Like, no. Like, please never do. Like, obviously not the asshole. If you wanted to sit next to his wife, he could have switched to the seat back with him, with her, you know, because surely someone would have switched to the nice seat. And listen, I've been flying this exact route because, as I said, I've been to Australia, and it's a very, very long and uncomfortable flight, and I would not like you, like, literally, basically, if you switch, you're giving money to a literal stranger for no reason whatsoever. Like, they initially booked economy, so they were fine with that, and the only reason they now want to sit in like premium economy is because they're getting married. Like, that's not a valid reason. Like, if like Miss the girl was like in her 7th month of pregnant and they didn't know because they booked the flights like way in advance and they didn't know this was going to be happening, and maybe then someone was asked to switch, you know, not saying that the man then should let the girl sit in the premium economy and just stay in economy, you know, but I'm just trying to find valid reasons that, you know, could actually warrant a switch out of being nice. But like, listen, this ain't even a question, okay? Don't waste my time like that. The guy next to you is just like a dickbag, listen. Okay, like, don't comment. Yeah, so if he really wanted to sit next to his wife, I'm sure the person sitting beside her would have left an upgrade to premium economy. He was essentially asking you to pay for his wife's upgrade. Listen, as a seasoned flyer from Australia who also works in aviation, I smell a rat. Presumably they booked together. They would have had the opportunity to plead their case when the upgrade was processed, either by contacting the airline prior to the date of flying or in person at the airport. My bet is that they either booked separately so she couldn't be taken into account, or he has some kind of status with the airline. And I'd also bet that the newlywed yarn was just made up for sympathy. He didn't have to take the upgrade, and you're not to blame for selfishness and lack of planning. Period. I don't think they were on the honeymoon. I think this is like, I smell BS. Someone said, not the asshole at all. People who do this kind of thing are so crappy. Him trying to guilt trip you by telling you that he was on his honeymoon was supposed to mean exactly what? Why were he and his wife entitled to a 1k gift from a stranger at the last minute? So their plan was to take the upgrade and try to bamboozle whoever was sitting there. They played themselves. He said that they were on the budget for the honeymoon. What does this have to do with the price of peas? They're all planning. It's not your emergency. They should have rejected the upgrade if they wanted to be sure they sat together. listen. The other thing is, if you fly from Melbourne to Dubai, what I've done previously is, the chances are really high that you're flying with a good airline and not like a cheap, international, like national airline, okay? Like literally, you don't go on a 14-hour flight with a cheap airline, okay? I've flown from Australia back to Germany quite a lot, and depending on which airline you fly over a different route. So Emirates obviously flies over Dubai. I've flown Etihad over Abu Dhabi, and I've flown Singapore Airlines over Singapore. Obviously, Emma, my boyfriend, came to Germany. He flew Thai Air over Bangkok, and with all these airlines, you were able to select your seat in advance. So I feel like, they would have been sitting together in any case, because you could have just literally done that prior to your flight. Because these big airlines don't charge you to sit together. If you book together, you get a seat together, So, like, either,